What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of the Mike Roach Podcast, brought to you by OXP Media, Paper Crane Studio, and the Battle Canada series. Now, usually when you see my podcasts, you usually hear them on audio most of the time on SoundCloud or iTunes or Spotify or something like that. But every now and then, when I got a very special guest, I got to bring it into the Paper Crane Studio. Now, if you know anything about the Toronto Raptors and watch them on YouTube, if you don't live under a rock, you're somewhere in the GTA and in Canada, type Toronto Raptors into YouTube, and probably one of the first faces you'll see is this man right in front of me, Luca Rosano. Luca, thank you for coming on to the show, my man.
This is a long time coming, Mike. Thanks for having me. Super excited. I love the studio setup, and I love what you're doing with the show, man.
Well, I got to pay it back because last week, was it last week when you had me on your show, or was that 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, yeah.
Okay, time flies, baby.
Yeah,
time flies when you're having fun.
Exactly.
But what I want to know, and I'm sure a lot of people who are going to be watching this already know who you are, right? So tell them a little bit about how the passion for basketball started with you.
Yeah, you know what, Mike? It started from a very young age, growing up a Raptors fan and just falling in love with the team. And then that stemmed into a passion just for broadcasters in general. I mean, I watched the TSNs, the Sportsnets, the ESPNs, and just seeing the guys that would call the games, the sideline reporters, all of that went into the broadcast. That really caught my interest. And then, sitting there as a kid, that's what I want to do one day. I want to, talk about basketball. I want to be involved with the game in a media aspect. So then, growing up, going to school, University of Guelph Humber, took media. That's really all, where my passion officially went through to the point where I said, I want to do this as a career. So yeah, just like many, Canadians growing up watching the Raptors go from their very, very bad days to now being, a legitimate contender year in, year out, that just continued to motivate me that, I want to talk about this team. I want to get my message out to the masses, and I want to be so good that people start to recognize me as people start to, be able to dig my content. So that just evolved into me doing the YouTube stuff that you see now and me pretty much creating content on the daily.
How were you as a student?
Not a very good one, man.
No?
I wasn't a very good student in the sense that I did a lot of things just to get by.
Sound like me.
Yeah. I enjoyed more of the social aspect of university versus obviously the the in-classroom stuff that we would do. But I wasn't necessarily your model student. I was the guy that just, showed up when you had to and got the job done when he had to. So
it's funny. Well, I was kind of the same way until the last 2 years when I really recognized that if I want to get up out of here, let me start doing this work, because I'm not trying to stay here and repeat these classes. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
very true.
I was terrible.
Yeah.
So tell me about when you really started to know that you wanted to be on YouTube.
Yeah, so originally I started out on Instagram because my media publication that is called the Waterboard Report, that was on Instagram, that was on Twitter, that was on Facebook. We had our website, we still do, where we cover all things Toronto sports. And then from that, as I was developing a team and putting out content on the fly, ranging from, NBA, NFL, because I was doing all leagues at that point. I was trying to be funny too. I was trying to really put out content that stood out to people and wasn't your stereotypical content. I tried to be different and unique. But from that, just seeing some of the results that I started to get on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, I saw that I had something there. But I still wasn't necessarily branding myself as a personality that is, who I am today. So I looked at YouTube as an opportunity, seeing some other prominent YouTubers, whether it's for NBA, NHL, NFL, and I saw, the type of content that they were able to produce, growing a fan base, seeing all the benefits that YouTube had to offer. I pretty much sat there 2 years ago, I would say, and I said, let me give this whole YouTube game a try, because at that point, I had grown an Instagram following for the Waterboard Report, my brand, to 10,000 plus, Facebook 4,000, so I was doing pretty well there, but I really wanted to take the challenge of YouTube, and I said, I'm like, I'm gonna try to put out the best content that I can, up my numbers, and see where this is ultimately going to go. So then from that point on, just putting out content. I used to do all sports, but then I found down the line that I was more successful and my stuff really started getting a lot more viewership when I was very more niche in my approach. And that came with me talking about the NBA, in particular the Toronto Raptors. And it was during their playoff run from I think 2 years ago that really set the tone, where it's like, okay, like, you know, people are starting to dig this stuff. I got to really go into basketball and Raptors content, because like this country, let alone, you know, this city of Toronto, they really want that content. And then from that point on, man, it's just a lot of trial and error, seeing what people dig, you know, from live streams to podcasts to being out there on the street interviewing people to just doing rants, you know, in my bootleg studios, I like to call it, humble beginnings. Yeah, you know, like that really, the passion was there. I had a lot of fun with it. The results, like I said, started to come in, and I've been doing it since, and I just hope to continue to grow. We recently eclipsed 10,000 subs, which is...
Oh, trust me, I've seen it.
Yeah, and you were...
I'm one of them.
Exactly.
So I watch your live stuff, I watch your videos.
And I was going to say, it's so cool, too, because when we did our podcast on my channel, the Luca Rosano show, that Friday, the next day is actually when I eclipsed that number.
Oh,
so
okay,
I'm like, Mike's my good luck charm.
Hey.
I gotta have him back on so I can hit 20, 30, 40K. But yeah, like that's, I would say, a lot of trial and error, and just really wanting to establish myself as a personality. That's what made me fall in love with YouTube, because there's so much potential and opportunity there that I find, where like you can be found in the matter of days, right? Like a video can go viral, people can see your video randomly, or an idea can spark. So that's why I really like YouTube.
So you said the personality, right? Like, was that the biggest obstacle when you were putting together all these YouTube videos?
Yeah, because I feel like I didn't have a clear identity or a clear direction. Like I was just putting out videos, I was doing like random things, and it went from being fun to being like, what the hell am I doing? Like from like doing a reaction video to like a WWE pay-per-view to then like doing something on the home run derby. Like it's very tough, especially when you're one person. Now don't get me wrong, there are sports YouTube channels or sports companies out there that thrive with sports content, but they got a big team. You know, we're talking 10, 20, 30 people. But, you know, when talking about just one person and really trying to establish that personality side to that person, that's when I said, okay, you know what? What's my true passion? What am I good at? What am I most knowledgeable on? And what can I really, you know, be successful at, and what is the market telling me to talk about, kind of putting that all in one. And then, you know what, bang, it was the Toronto Raptors. Been a diehard fan since day one, love basketball, love this team, love this city, and I see that there's a need almost for Raptors content. Now obviously your TSN Sportsnets, The Score, they cover the Raptors, but in particular on YouTube, there wasn't a lot. So that's when I saw the opportunity to really go all in and for people to know me as my basketball persona.
So now that people are beginning to really know you as a Raptors guy with all the content that you put on YouTube, has there been any opportunities that YouTube has brought to you?
Yeah, so the biggest ones in particular, I mean, going back, this is when I first started talking about the Raptors. One of my takes was actually discovered by an ESPN producer, and then that led to me ultimately debating Stephen A. Smith. It wasn't about a Raptors topic, but it was about where LeBron James should sign. This was before he had made the decision to go to LA, and it was funny because the video that I put out before actually being selected to interview Stephen A. Smith, it was when the Raptors still had DeMar DeRozan, and there was that whole stigma, like, this team, they have a good season, they're coming in hot, but there's no way they're going to beat LeBron James and the Cavs. And I was sitting there, poor me, trying to defend the Raptors against Stephen A. Smith, telling them that, no, this year's going to be different. Like, the Raptors are going to beat the Cavaliers, and little did I know, I believe we got swept.
I was watching. I saw his face. He wasn't buying it.
Yeah, he wasn't buying it. He wasn't buying it at all. So it was actually that take that put me on the map, and it was cool because, like, that actually got some, you know, TV time in the States on ESPN First Take. And then after that is the take that I submitted about LeBron James. I said that he should have stayed stayed with the Cavs, and I guess that caught the producer's attention because Stephen A. felt that he should go to LA, which he did, and then they felt that would be a good, one-on-one. So they invited me on via Skype. I got the opportunity of a lifetime. I never forget. I was actually downtown filming content with my videographer, and then I get a text saying, "Hey Luca, like we would love to have you on this Friday to debate Stephen A. Smith." I'm like, oh my goodness, it's not like you get this text every day, right?
Yeah.
So I quickly wrapped up what I was doing, went home, started prepping, Friday hits, and it was just a magical moment, Mike. I mean, like all my hard work, always wanting to be on ESPN because I feel like that's kind of my ultimate goal, to one day work for ESPN in some capacity. Being able to have that opportunity with one of my idols, Stephen A. Smith. I mean, I'm sure we all know his story. You do as well.
Yeah.
With, where he started and where he is today. Like, very big inspiration of mine. He is a big basketball head as well. So that was just awesome. And then, and then most recently, my Raptors content got me featured on the TSN commercial. For a couple split seconds. But my face is
seeing that.
Yeah, my face still pops up on your screen, like going, cheering. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
All right. So my next questions were Stephen A. Smith. Where do you want to go with this? You just answered everything, Luca, without me even having to ask it.
My bad. I tend to do that. I tend to talk a lot. So listen, if you want to pull the mic away whenever you need to, just be my guest.
Nah, man, that's incredible. So what do you think? Is that your most memorable moment doing being a YouTube personality?
I think so, because I mean, you look at pretty much the story behind it. I mean, a kid fresh out of graduating, in his basement, making videos, trying to make something of himself, trying to get the notoriety, recognition, of his ability to talk on camera and give his hot takes. Like, to see like that opportunity arise for me, literally just giving my opinion on camera, uploading it, and seeing where that could take me, like that, I think speaks volumes to the opportunity that digital gives all of us. Where it's like, if you're passionate about something, if you feel like you're good enough, and you put it out there, like just put it out there, and you never know what could happen. And I mean, that definitely was the most memorable moment, and I hope to do it again one day. This, next time in person, and going up against them. Maybe employed by ESPN. We'll see, but yeah, that's cool.
You're gonna be employed somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's gonna be, but you're gonna be employed somewhere. I also saw that, didn't Stephen A. Smith say he was gonna be on your show eventually?
Yeah, so he didn't live up to that, unfortunately. Not yet, but
we can make that happen.
Yeah, hopefully he's watching this right now. Yeah, Stephen A. man, you said you would be on my show, and I'm still waiting for you. So
that's right.
I got to get him on as a guest. I don't know if he's gonna be as good as you though, as a guest. So he's got some big shoes to fill.
Oh man. Well, listen, I want to do another episode with you eventually, just digging into your entire life. All right, but until that happens, let's flip the page and let's talk about some NBA basketball.
Let's do it, man.
Okay?
Let's do it.
Now, I was going to talk about the Raptors first, but I'll keep them for last because that's your thing. So let's get through a few quick topics, and then we'll get to the Toronto Raptors in depth. Okay?
Let's do it.
First thing we'll get to, the MVP race.
Ooh.
Do you have a top 2 or top 3 for the MVP race?
You know what, Mike? I think it's going to come down to 2. I think it's Giannis or LeBron. And, I mean, I'd love to hear your take on this, too, because for me, if you look at it from a statistical standpoint, I mean, Giannis is probably going to be unanimous MVP. However, like, we should change the way we give the award, I think, because MVP is most valuable player, most valuable to his team. To which I'd say that is LeBron James, because you remove LeBron from the Lakers, they're either not making the playoffs or they're a 7 or 8 seed in the West with how good the West is. If you take Giannis off the Bucks, I still think the Bucks are top 5 team in the East.
They'll still be in the playoffs, I think. Well, put it this way. Anthony Davis just came from where?
The Pelicans.
Take LeBron off the Lakers and they become the Pelicans.
That's true too. And they're a non-playoff team.
Pretty much. Okay. Now, the rookie race. Zion Williamson is doing some incredible things. I think, who do you have right now for Rookie of the Year?
It's tough because Zion is doing incredible things, but I mean, he's only played in a handful of games, whereas Ja has shown us what he can do over the whole course of the regular season. I would still probably give it a shot unless Zion, put it this way. If Zion can wilt the Pelicans, which there's a good chance, into the playoffs while playing stellar basketball as he's been, then I think you seriously have to give it to Zion, which I think he would make a record or have a record for like the least games played to win Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't happen, I think you got to give it a shot just because of his body of work.
So Zion right now is averaging 24, 7, and 2 assists per game. Now, we all expected him to be a pretty good basketball player, but has he met your expectations or exceeded them in any way since he's been in the lineup?
To be honest with you, I wasn't one of those naysayers. Like, I was fully sold by this kid. Like, I thought he was going to be very, very good. Not LeBron James good, but I knew he was going to be the real deal. So, yeah, I guess he's met my expectations looking at it from that perspective. And I think he's exceeded a lot of people's expectations because, like, and people were dumb for saying this out of the get-go. Oh, Greg Oden 2.0, not going to live up to expectations. And, I mean, the dude literally just started his pro basketball career. Granted, he did suffer an injury, but still, like, he's 19 years old. Cut the kid some slack. So I knew he was going to be good. But yeah, like lately, I mean, he's just showing us what he can be. And I think, talking about the next decade, he's going to be right there. And when talking about the best player in the league.
What do you think about Ja Morant as a player? Like, what's his ceiling to you? How good do you think he can be?
That's a really good question, Mike. Ja's really, really good, and he's impressed me too. I mean, even coming from Murray State, we all knew that he was going to have that if factor. I really hate putting, ceilings on players, especially this young, just because, like, you still don't know what they can give you. I really think Ja can, again, be, when looking at the next decade, a top 5 player. I mean, he's got what you would want from a guard. He's got what you would want from a guy leading your franchise. If you're going to ask me who do I think ultimately is going to be better, I will go with Zion. But the thing with Zion, and it's the most obvious thing, is, is he going to be able to keep his weight in check? Because I think somebody said,
he's almost
300 pounds. I don't know how much validity there is to that, but man, like, come on. The human body cannot, like, absorb that, 300 pounds, you moving in all different directions. So that's the thing. If he can get into game-ready shape and control his weight, Zion's going to be an animal. He's going to be something that we maybe have never seen before. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, if the weight's there and you have the injuries creep up, then maybe, Ja can be a better player long-term. But I would still go with Zion, considering that, whoever's coaching him up and, the big team that he has in terms of, like, his staff, his nutritionists and all that are going to say, you gotta cut down the weight here. You got to get into shape.
They said he put on 8 pounds in a week.
I don't know what these kids are eating nowadays, man. Like, what is it? Like
rocks? I mean, for goodness sake. Your top 2 teams in the West, okay, right now they're the Lakers and the Clippers. The Clippers are 5.5 games behind.
Yeah.
Are those the 2 best teams in the Western Conference?
I think so, undoubtedly. I think ultimately it's going to come down to either or. I have, spoiler alert, I have the Clippers winning the whole thing. I took a little bit of slack on that. Because Raptors fans are like, you turned on your team. I'm like, no, I'm just being realistic. I'm not being a homer all the way. Yeah, I think they're definitely the 2 best teams, especially when healthy. You look at even the recent moves the Clippers made, picking up a guy like Morris and Reggie Jackson. I really like that. Who are the Lakers going to get? JR or Waiters? That remains to be seen. I think. Are you not sold on either? I mean, who would you, let me throw this quick question to you. Who would you rather have if you're the Lakers? Waiters or JR? Like, who would you would rather see as a Lakers fan?
That's a frightening question. If those are the 2 guys, then I'm picking between. I mean, don't get me wrong. No disrespect. Both of them are very streaky shooters.
Yeah.
They're serviceable players. J.R. Smith, I have not seen since LeBron was doing this at him in the NBA Finals.
That's the scary part if you bring him back, man. I mean, that's going to be the first time since that, right, between them.
And the last time I heard about Dion Waiters, he was high out of his mind on the team plane. All right? I don't know what the hell to think about both of these guys at this point. Right now, I would probably say I'd have to go with Dion Waiters just because I know he's been on a basketball court more recent than J.R. Smith. I'm talking about in an NBA game. They could fully be, practicing, going hard in private. I'm sure they're both in shape and ready to go. But if I had to choose right now, Dion Waiters, he may be a tiny bit of a head case. I don't really know. I know he was well coached in Miami with Eric Spoelstra, and there's probably a few guys on that coaching staff who probably know Dion Waiters and probably think he could be a good fit. He can make some shots for you. He can bring the ball up the court for you, and he can maybe do a tad bit of playmaking. Maybe.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. When the guy catches the ball, he doesn't like to pass it again. But if anybody, I'd have to go with Dion Waiters.
That's interesting. I would say JR just because of the chemistry that he already has with LeBron. Even though like the last play that they both played in the same game together was that like infamous, one of the last moments together. But I would go with JR just because that familiarity with LeBron, and I still think when they're both streaky shooters, but when one is on, I would go with a JR Smith who's on versus Dion Waiters who's on.
He does shoot the ball effortlessly.
Yeah.
And he can shoot it from deep.
Exactly.
Okay, let's get out of the West. Let's go to the East now.
Let's do it.
We're going to talk about the Raptors, and we're going to talk about the Raptors' threats. Okay? Now, let's start off with the Raptors before we even get to the other teams in the East. What is your takeaway from the Raptors thus far in the season? How competitive will they be come playoff time?
Well, man, like, these injuries are killing us. That's my overall thought on that. The Raptors have been the biggest surprise story in the NBA. I mean, if anybody were to tell you start of the season this team would be second place, have a legitimate shot come playoff time, like, you would look at them like you got to stop smoking whatever you're smoking. Because this team, heavily underwritten, once Kawhi Leonard went to LA, then they proved everybody wrong, which is pretty much their motto. The Raptors play better when you doubt them, and they have shown us that very same narrative once again. If the Raptors are healthy come playoff time, I think they're going to be a tough team to beat over the course of a 7-game series. Are they going to run the table and get to a final? I think they have enough there that they could. However, I think ultimately that second seed is going to be very important, because if you get that second seed, that ensures you at least have home court for the first 2 rounds, and then that would ultimately set up, in all likelihood, a matchup against Milwaukee. Because like you look at, and we're talking about this on my show, Mike. You look at the East, like it's super, super tight. I don't remember the last time the East was this wide open, where you can legitimately look at the teams 1 through 6, and you can make a case for that team getting out of the East. So
100%.
I think that being said, home court is going to be huge in determining who wins, who loses, who goes on, who goes home. So Raptors definitely need that 2 seed to have any chance to get to a final. But I think, like I said, if they're healthy 100%, they can hang with the best of them, and they've shown us that. Outside of the Raptors, some interesting teams and some teams that I'm very high on. I'm going to go with Boston, just looking at what they have. Jason Tatum has really elevated his game. I mean, you got to love Jason Tatum, man. Like, going back to what I was saying about guys who are going to take over the league once, the LeBron James, the KDs are officially gone. Jason Tatum's got, he's so effortless with the ball. He's got that it factor. I mean, he reminds me, honestly, like, of a young Kobe. And I'm not saying that he's as good as Kobe was at that age, but he just has that, part of his game, that shooting ability, the way he just gets to the rim. Boston's going to be really good.
And the way he finishes at the rim.
Exactly.
My goodness.
Like, he just, it's good to be a Celtics fan watching him. And then I think another team that not a lot of people are giving love to, the team that just beat Milwaukee, the team that's 2-0 against Milwaukee, the team that has beaten the Raptors a couple times, the Miami Heat.
I mean, Bam Adebayo really put the clamps down.
Did you see that?
Antetokounmpo.
Like, that was impressive, man. Like, Bam has really burst onto the scene.
I'm telling you, and I said this on your podcast, like, if somebody before this season said Bam Adebayo would be an NBA All-Star, I would have put money on it. I would have put money on that.
There's no way. I agree with you. He literally came out of nowhere, and you got to give the kid all the credit in the world. I mean, he is playing fantastic basketball. And then you got Jimmy Butler, and that's the thing about Miami is they're so deep. They got so many guys who can spread the floor, hit their shots, hit the three, and then you got that alpha in Jimmy Butler. Every good team needs their go-to guy, and I think Miami's found theirs in Jimmy. Obviously, with Boston, I think Tatum can be that guy. Milwaukee, I didn't name them, but they're going to be obviously a threat with Giannis. Let me ask you a question now. Who do you think and who do you trust as the Raptors' go-to guy? Because every great team, come the playoffs, they need a guy. Hey, man, here's the ball. Get us a bucket or stop the bleeding. Who's that guy on the Raptors?
I don't know. I'm not sure they have one at this point. I'm looking at the starting lineup for the Raptors, okay? So for a large part of the season, they're playing the two small guys, Lowry, Van Vliet. You have OG, and then you had Serge, and was it Mark? Then the question to me now becomes, who's the other important guy? So I'm looking at Norman Powell, and he comes back into the lineup. He's been phenomenal since he's come back. He looks like, I don't know, he has this confidence about him where he doesn't look afraid anymore now when he's in the game. But when it comes down to that last shot, who do you give the ball to? I don't think it's Lowry.
Yeah, no, no, it's not Lowry.
To me, I feel like it's going to be a toss-up between Van Vliet and Siakam. The only problem is that Van Vliet is small, and he gets into trouble when he has long defenders on him, right? And they're kind of tough to shake off, obviously, which is normal. Now, if it's a situation where somebody creates and Van Vliet is at the three-point line or wherever the hell he catches the ball, and he's shooting it, I'm perfectly confident in Fred Van Vliet.
He's a great spot-up shooter.
Ball.
Exactly.
But if it comes to you're playing against a team like the Bucks or a team that has long defenders on the perimeter like the 76ers, and they're putting the clamps down on you, like the other day when they played the Milwaukee Bucks and Fred Van Vliet had the ball, there was multiple times when he's trying to get to the basket and he has to pull it out because these guys are like trees. You're looking at Lopez brothers, Middleton.
There's no way you're getting that shot up.
You know what I mean? It's crazy. You're at Antetokounmpo. Then you're looking at guys like Marvin Williams and Matthews.
That was a big get for them, Marvin
Williams.
It was,
and he played great.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not really sure who it is. Now, Pascal Siakam does not look like he's that player yet. I think he can be. I just don't think he's there yet. We've seen him make some pretty, we've seen him make some tough shots at the end of games. The only problem is, for me, when I see that, they're teams against teams that aren't great.
That's the thing.
You know what I mean?
500 teams.
So does it worry you at all about Pascal's play when he's going up against teams who are legitimate contenders and then teams like Phoenix that we see him beat up on?
Yeah,
is that a concern to you?
It really is, and I think that's ultimately going to hurt the Raptors in the playoffs. Something that I can see stop them in the playoffs is the fact that they don't have that consensus go-to guy or a guy who can be comfortable and come up big in those moments like we had in Kawhi Leonard a season ago. And yeah, I don't want to put too much stock into what we see. And with all due respect, I'm not taking anything away from a Siakam, going off against a Suns team or some of these lesser teams. I want to see, like you said, when we go up against these heavyweights, I want to see our guys show up, our quote-unquote go-to guys. Mm-hmm. And I think, like, let's just say, Raptors playoffs start tomorrow. It's Game 7, comes down to the wire. Yeah, like, who is Nurse going to give the ball to? Like you said, in all likelihood, it will be Siakam because he is a guy that can, although he doesn't look comfortable, can create his own shot. Whereas the thing with Van Vliet that hurts him is he's better, in my opinion, as just a spot-up shooter versus a guy that can create off the dribble and get his shot. So I think, time will tell. But if it is Siakam, I'm holding my breath. I'm not confident or comfortable with Siakam being trusted in the final 2 minutes of a game. So we'll see. But I think ultimately that's what's going to hurt the Raptors, and more so than all the officiating stuff that people like to make a big spiel about. The Raptors not getting the benefit of the whistle. But yeah, can the Raptors close out a game? Who's going to step up consistently? And, is this team going to run into some trouble also when they play some bigger teams? Like, I don't know about you, but I do not want to play the Sixers in the first round if it ends up, 3 versus 6, or even if the Sixers fall to 7, which is still a possibility. Like, I don't want to play the Sixers assuming Embiid comes back healthy, and then we saw what the Bucks did to us with their size. That was a nightmare, man. Like, that was, and I feel like the Bucks didn't even have a typical good Bucks game. They struggled in that first half.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's so crazy because you said it before. When you think about the 1 through 6 here, you could make an argument for any team 1 through 6. Yeah. And I know people don't really think about the Pacers too much because everybody is so focused on Toronto and Milwaukee. And you already brought up Boston and Miami. We've talked about Philadelphia. The Pacers can play. The Pacers can play. Now, you're looking at Oladipo, who's still getting back into his groove. You're looking at the Holiday brothers, who are good, both of them. And then you're looking at a guy like, and this is my dude, because this guy can play.
You're raving about him on my show too.
Yeah. Sabonis. All right. Now, don't get me. Malcolm Brogdon is definitely. Yeah, I mean,
we didn't even mention him. Yeah,
we didn't
Brogdon.
mention him.
He's a good player.
And Sabonis. I mean, I'm telling you, he is a strong dude. Okay, footwork off the charts, jump hooks, mid-range jumper. I mean, the guy can flat out play. Now, for everybody who hasn't really seen this guy, there is a reason this man was an all-star. Okay, people just need to watch the guy. The guy can flat out play. But like you said, the Raptors, they're a game and a half in front of the Boston Celtics right now. They go to third. They're going up against Philly. If Philly were to stay in sixth right now, you don't want that.
That scares me, man. And I said this to a buddy. It's funny, a couple days ago. Yeah, you do not want to play Philly in the first round. I'd live with a matchup against the Pacers, even the Heat, but you do not want to play Philly in the first round. I just have that feeling. And you know what? A lot of people have been giving Philly a ton of grief, but I mean, Philly, you get a Simmons back, Embiid back when motivated. I mean, when Joel Embiid is motivated, he's the best big man in the game. So, you know, they got the talent. And what's scary about Philly is you just don't know when they're going to click. Are they going to click at the right time in the playoffs? Maybe. So, yeah, like you said, man, there's a lot of good teams. And the Raptors, listen, they're in tough. It's not going to be an easy time for them. They're going to come run into adversity. And I really, just to repeat myself here, I really think it's going to come down to who has home court. Like, you're going to see series go to game 7, I believe.
That's a great point.
And if you have home court, that's ultimately, I think, going to be the edge in determining who wins.
Philly looks like a lottery team on the road.
That's the thing.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, they're horrible. But then at home, they look like the next best thing.
It's incredible. Now, I want to finish off with the Toronto Raptors, and I have 2 questions for you. They're both the same question. One is from the starting unit, one is from the bench. Who is your X factor for the bench? Who is your X factor in the starting lineup, and why?
That's a really good question. You know what? Let's start. We're going to start with the starting lineup here. It's Marc Gasol. Marc Gasol needs to come back healthy. You see how much of an impact he makes when the Raptors play against bigger teams. You know, that series last year against Milwaukee, just the presence that he has inside. I think we're really missing Mark in a lot of these games that you've seen recently. I mean, we got beat up against the Nuggets with Jokic. I mean, nobody could stop that guy.
Beat up badly.
And I know it hurts because we're missing both Mark and Serge, but I just think Marc Gasol, he's that glue, man. The thing about Mark is he's so versatile because you don't only get so much of him on defense and all the good things that he brings to you on defense, but it's the other things that go unnoticed. His passing abilities, in my opinion, he's one of the best passing big men in the game.
Absolutely.
You know, it's his basketball IQ. It's the fact that he can hit a 3. He can spot up and hit a key jumper as he did even in the finals last year. Marc Gasol needs to be healthy for the Raptors to have any chance. And it's funny because I know a lot of people were, complaining when we traded away JV for Mark. Like, why would you trade a young guy? I loved it, man. And I have a video on YouTube proving that I was one of the few guys at the time amongst yourself who loved it and praised the move. And people were coming at me like, are you stupid, man? Like, we trade JV, young guy in his prime for Mark. I'm like, just watch. Watch what this guy's going to do in the playoffs and watch the impact he's going to have on the game on both sides.
You know what? With Marc Gasol, when you watch him play, his basketball IQ is just off the charts.
You can't teach a lot of the stuff that he does.
Just off the charts. Both ends of the floor. But I'm going to challenge you here. OG Anunoby. Do you think he could be a bigger X factor than Marc Gasol? There's no consistency with this guy. He can play.
I mean, look at the game, that he had a few nights ago against the Nuggets. I mean, he gives us that. Like, OG's you see shades of Kawhi when he's on. Like, he is super, super skilled and gifted, but I wouldn't put him as more of an X factor just because, the consistency. Until he can prove to us that he can do it, for multiple games, a string of games, you put more faith in him. But that being said, I think OG, and that's another guy, and I'm glad you brought him up. That's a guy that I'm very fond of. I think he's going to be really, really good. He just has to piece it together. Like his defense, like that's top notch. Some of the stuff that he does, you can't teach that. Like you could just tell he's got a natural knack for defense, which is just awesome to see. It's the offensive side. Like if he can get a little bit more of a rhythm offensively, like OG could arguably be our best player if his offense gets to the point where you can trust this guy. And it's similar to Kawhi, because when Kawhi came in, he was more known for his defense, and then he really developed that offensive arsenal where then you're seeing him with the way he's able to create his own shot or his dribble moves, and it's like, where did this come from?
Yeah, and really, nobody really saw his full arsenal until he was in a Raptors uniform.
Exactly. So the thing about OG, it's like you can't teach the stuff that he does on defense. The fact that he's already got that, and he does a really good job at doing that stuff, like that's awesome. It's like if he can then adapt that offensive game similar to how Kawhi did it. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Kawhi, but like he reminds me of Kawhi in that sense, where you come in, you're a defensive guy, no one's really talked about your offense. You get that offensive side going, and all of a sudden, like you're a big time player. So that's the thing that intrigues me most about OG, and we even saw it too the year that the Raptors got pummeled by the Cavs. OG showed up big in a couple of those games.
He played great defensively too.
And then to answer your question, Mike, about an X factor from the bench.
Yeah.
I think you got to go with TD Bank, man. You got to go with Terrence Davis, man. Like, you look at his story, just another undrafted gem. Some of the spurts that he's had for us offensively. The playoffs is all about, getting hot at the right time. And it's all
he's going to be key.
Your bench guys coming in and hitting, the three. And I think he's going to be very key. Spacing the floor, hitting a big-time bucket, hitting a big-time shot. And if he can give us, consistent production, especially with that three-point shot, an area that the Raptors are typically good in, but they've struggled lately, I think that's going to be very big for the team.
Now, everybody, if you want to hear more Raptors content, I am encouraging you to type in Luca Rosano in YouTube. You will find 5,000 videos talking about the Raptors and NBA basketball. Luca, where else can we find you online?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, same username, Luca Rosano, Twitter, Luca Rosano 3. And yeah, like Mike was saying on YouTube, guys, if you want to check it out, Luca Rosano, got you covered, Raptors and basketball. And then also, I do my show on Fridays, the Luca Rosano Show. That's on SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, pretty much everywhere you find your podcast. And I've had a great guest, one of which was Mike, who showed up a couple weeks ago. And when Mike showed up, like I said, I hit 10K the next day. So I definitely got to have Mike back on my show.
That was happening without me.
I don't know, man.
But guys, this is OXP Media. It's the Mike Roach Podcast. And make sure, just like Luca said, on all those different platforms, Instagram, make sure you find us on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, and definitely YouTube, especially with this video that's going to be coming out. But Luca, thank you so much, man.
Thanks,
really
man.
appreciate the time.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show, and I hope you and I can do something again soon.
100%, man. Just let me know when. I'm down.
Appreciate it, man. Peace. We're out.